What's going on YouTube? This is Rybo at the bench, and today I have another cut or carry knife review. Today looking at the Tangram Vector. So Tangram is the kind of Kaiser subsidiary or child brand, kind of what Civivi is to WeKnives, which is interesting in itself because, you know, Kaisers can be more expensive, but there are some budget options in the Kaiser brand, but this is the budget Kaiser brand, I guess. But this is Tangram. So these are, I think, exclusively sold on Amazon. This is, I want to say 40 bucks, 45 bucks, something like that. This is the Vector. So this is famous for being the button lock, kind of the budget button lock. Now, if I can get that to drop shut, but something you don't really see every day on a budget option. And so this has become a popular knife. Like I said, 45 bucks. This is Japanese Akuto steel. Which I didn't have a ton of experience. Well, strike that. I had zero experience with this beforehand. So I just know kind of what my experience has been and what I've read about it. Other things about the knife, let's do, I guess, some size comparisons just to get a baseline for what we're looking at. And of course, with that, I just broke my calipers. Let's see if they'll work. All right, sharpened blade length, you're looking at right under 3 inches, 2.9, 2.85, something like that, which is, you know, just fine. Closed in the pocket, you're looking at 3.89, so under 4 inches, which is good. And then the thickness, you're right under 1/2 inch, which is pretty standard. No issues there. Weight, it's not a lightweight knife by any means. You're looking at metal scales, I guess aluminum or something there. And you're looking at about 4-inch knife, so 3.3 ounces. You know, nothing really wrong there. I think other knife reviewers do 1 ounce per inch or something like that. So I mean, this is right around there, but you know, it's not too heavy. You know, especially when you compare it to something like the CRKT Polar, which I guess leads into the size comparison. So Tangram Vector, CRKT Polar. Dragonfly 2, Paramilitary 3 lightweight, and then I'll do a head-to-head of these, the Ontario Rat 2. So these are kind of similar knives, similar price points. So there you go. It's kind of in that Rat 2 Delica, maybe a little bit smaller. All right, so what are some things that I like about the Tangram Vector? One is the button lock. So the button lock is just something I've never owned a button lock until this. It's just different. It's a little bit weird. It's a little bit unique. Basically, you have this push button right here, hence the term button lock, and that is going to basically allow the blade to swing. So if you can see, and I don't know if I'm catching any of this on camera, but you can see that hole right there, that kind of half moon crescent there. That's what's going to fall right there and allow the button to engage. So when you push that, kind of similar to a compression lock or something like that in some ways that, you know, you're disengaging, allowing that blade to swing, you know, openly. And then when it comes back out, that's really the force of the blade. So if there was a tendency for this blade to have any blade play, it would be left and right in this position or this position, probably not up and down. And I mean, there's no blade play here, but I think if the lock were to fail, I would think that that's how it would fail. But it has not for me. So, all right, what are some other things I like? The steel has been very, very nice. You know, from what I've read, the Akuto is basically better than AUS 8, much better than AUS 8. That is certainly what I've found. I've been able to cut cardboard, open packages, slice food. I can't remember what else I've done with this knife, but it's held up just fine. Nice grind comes on the blade. I've been very happy with that. You'll notice that the blade is dirty on this, and I do apologize for that. I almost cleaned it off for the review, but I thought it would be better to show, like, I have used this knife. When I review knives, I do use them. I do, you know, I don't beat them up, but I do use them fairly heavily. And so this is no different. And so I left all of that gunk and whatnot on there just to prove, like, this has been in the pocket for a decent bit of time, and I do use it. So there you go. So I like the blade steel. I also like the blade. It's a nice drop point. Just everything about the geometry and shape of this blade is done very well. It's a very utilitarian blade. I think it looks very nice, and you can just tell it's going to get a lot of tasks done very well. So you have a very nice plunge grind. You're coming all the way back here to the handle, which is really nice. You have this really, really nice swedge. This is one of my favorite, I don't know, can I say this is one of my favorite swedges that I've seen on a knife? But you're starting a little bit further up the blade stock here, and then sweeping down just very nicely. I really, really like that. I think it looks really good. I think it works very well. It just makes for an overall very nice blade, kind of a drop point there. It is a recurved blade, and I'll talk about that in a little bit, but I think everything about this is very nice. The thickness is very nice. I didn't measure that, but, well, let's do millimeters. So you're looking at 2.4 millimeters thick blade. So for the size, just overall very nice size. Very nice blade. For a knife this size, you're getting a very large, useful blade, which is really cool. Other things I like about this, honestly, I just like how different it is. I mean, I don't know, for $45, for under 50 bucks, typically what you're getting is you're getting a very standard basic knife, like something like this. One of my favorite knives of all time, the Rat 2, don't get me wrong, but you know, it's nothing to look at really. It's just very basic. It's very expected. CRKT does some crazy designs, but typically their execution isn't all that great. What I really like about this is that you're getting a very interesting knife. You have a button lock. You have this really cool handle material, just this different pattern that people really like. You're getting a very nice blade. You're getting a steel that people aren't really used to, but is actually very nice. And all of that you're getting, you know, at under $50, which is really cool. So it's just a weird little knife. It's something different in the budget category, which I think is really nice. And it's executed pretty well. So that's kind of what I like about it. It's different, it's practical, it's useful. You know, it carries fairly well. The pocket clip is nothing super spectacular, but it carries just fine. I actually like this pocket clip a lot more than I like some other budget options, steel will. But you know, it is all in all just a very functional knife, and it's very different, and I like that a lot. So what do I not like about this knife? Unfortunately, a couple things. So one, the ergonomics. You can see you have this finger choil here. You have what looks to be fairly nice ergonomics. Unfortunately for me, and I have, you know, a little bit larger hands, but it just doesn't hold very well. It feels like I'm way too far back on the knife. If I hold something like the Paramilitary 3 lightweight, I'm holding it fairly up close. Even the Dragonfly, which is maybe a little bit, well, no, it's probably not closer in size, but either way, I'm holding it up a little bit more on the blade. The CRKT Polar, I'm holding it, you know, up. This feels a lot more natural. This feels fairly unnatural. It feels like I should be holding it up here, but I can't do that because I have sharpened length right there. And so if I hold it where it's intended to be held, it just feels like it's forcing my hand somewhere that it should not be. I heard a knife designer say that, you know, that he does not like to force the hand somewhere on a knife, that he likes to let the user kind of figure out where that should be. I don't know if I totally agree with that, because I've seen how, you know, some knives are just executed very well. But in this case, I do. I would much prefer just a, you know, no finger choil, just a handle material there, because this feels very unnatural. And honestly, with a lot of cutting tasks, I just don't feel totally in control. I would much rather choke up on the knife a little bit. So that's one thing I don't like. What else? The button lock, while it's very nice, very cool, it does stick quite a bit. So, you know, you would kind of come to expect that for 45 bucks. But you can probably hear that. So if I open this knife, and that's one thing I forgot to mention in the things I like, the action on this knife is very good. It does open very well, flies open, you know, pretty solidly, and you don't really feel it. It just kind of opens up. So that is very nice. But like I said, the button lock, let's see if I can get this on camera. That right there. So you can hear that kind of, actually, after I do it the first time, it gets much better. Let's see if I open this up. That right there. So you can hear that kind of stickiness, or whatever you want to call that. Not super smooth. I thought it might wear in a little bit better than it has, but unfortunately it has not. Not a huge deal, but it's just one of those tactile things that when you go to open or close the knife, it just reminds you that this is a budget button lock, and that's not a awesome thing. So that this is just not really that enjoyable. So I don't love that. Other things that I don't love, I mean, I said this before, but all metal knives are just not my thing. That's a totally personal choice to me. It's just, I've said this before, my hands sweat quite a bit. I can't get a good grip on them. This design, while it is different, it's unique, it's whatever, it's just not my style. It's a little too artsy for a knife for me, especially on a budget thing. I do respect it. I would not have bought the knife if it didn't have this cool handle design, because I think it just does draw you to the knife, especially at the price. Over time, though, it's just not really what I want in my pocket every day. It's not a super utilitarian looking knife, I guess, even if it is in function. And so that's just not my favorite thing, but that's a very picky little thing. The pocket clip is totally fine. I like it more than some other people like it. It's got a weird kind of curvature here, which I think makes it carry in the pocket kind of off center. I mean, if you look at kind of where this knife is going to be carrying, it's way sweeping out there, which is just kind of weird, to be honest. Typically what happens in the pocket is it doesn't sit quite flush there, which is just kind of odd. It looks like, I don't know, it just doesn't necessarily look like the pocket clip fits the knife. I mean, in some ways it kind of matches that curvature of the design behind it, and maybe that's what they're going for. But anytime you take, design over functionality, form over function kind of thing, that kind of sucks for the end user, and so that's not an awesome thing. But other than that, I mean, it functions fairly well. It gets in and out of the pocket. The pocket clip up here is a little bit of a hot spot, more in the pocket than anything. I just noticed it sits fairly proud there. When you're holding the knife, and see, I went to do it again right there. When you're holding the knife, you have a little bit of a hot spot there, not too bad, but I actually notice it when I'm carrying it clipped to the pocket more than anything. And that's the final thing, is that the pocket clip, you can only wear it right there. You cannot put it over here. Can't put it tip up or tip down. You can basically just wear it tip up in that one position. So tip up, what is that, right? And so that's not awesome either. So final conclusions. I think it's a very interesting knife. I'm very glad I picked it up, very glad that I got to experience one. I really do like the steel, and at least the steel material, the Akuto. I've really had great experience with that. But when I really evaluate this knife, there are two reasons, one of which I just realized I didn't even talk about, but that's what you get for not having a script. But there are really two reasons that I'm not going to keep this knife. This is going to be a cut for me for really two major reasons. Number one, the ergonomics. Like I said, it just doesn't, it feels good right there, but it doesn't feel practical. I would much rather it have a forward finger choil or just a straight handle right there. That is totally a subjective thing because not everyone's hands are the same, but for me, it just doesn't work. And then number two, and really the main reason, is the recurve blade. It's hard to see on this knife, but this is a slightly recurved blade, and I hate that. I hate recurve blades, and I hate recurve blades even more when there's absolutely no purpose to them. For this knife, there is absolutely no reason that it needs a recurve. You can look at it, you can barely tell that it has one. It would absolutely not have mattered if they had decided not to and had decided to just leave this straight right here. But for me, I'm just not going to sharpen that. I use oil stones, and I'm just not going to spend the time sharpening a recurve blade on this $45 knife. Just not going to happen. I think it cuts fairly well. I've had very good experience cutting cardboard and doing things like that. But for me, it's just not worth the effort on a knife that aesthetically is just not really one that's going to be in the pocket all the time. Ergonomically, it's just not one that I'm going to be reaching for. To me, it doesn't make any sense. And so really for those two reasons, ergonomics and the recurve blade, it just doesn't make it practical that this is a knife that I'm going to carry. So for me, this is a cut, but I think that those two reasons are fairly subjective, and so for you it may be different. All in all, very interesting knife. Glad I picked one up, and I will see you next time.